Good morning, everyone. You have tuned in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I'm your host, Sergeant Rich Myers with the Indiana State Police Public Information Office. Thank you for joining us today. I have as my guest Lieutenant Mike Lepper from the Indiana State Police Staff Services. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
We thank you for being on the Indiana State Police Roadshow. Again, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance, and we'd like to thank our behind-the-scenes man, Tom Trial, for putting us on the Indiana State Police the Indiana State Police Roadshow, the Indiana State Police YouTube site each and every week. You can also catch our show there each and every week. Lieutenant, this has been a while since you've been on. You were talking before, you were on here with Sergeant Ray Poole. That's been a couple of days.
It's been many years ago. Many years.
Do you recall what you were talking about then?
I honestly don't.
Wasn't that important, was it?
I slept since then. So.
Well, Lieutenant, we're going to be talking about something that is very important to Indiana, and a law that's going to be, I guess what we're going to say is reinstated, a law that's been here before. But give us a little bit of your background here. When did you start with the Indiana State Police? And more importantly, why did you start with the Indiana State Police?
Well, I was appointed to the state police in November of 1984. Truly blessed in my life, Rich. It's something I wanted to do since I was a child. And not many people get to say they get to do for a living what they dreamed of doing, but I have for working on my 32nd year now.
Good.
Started as a road trooper, as all of us do in Hamilton County, where I still live today, and was a detective for a while. I've done many different jobs. I commanded the state police post at Pendleton for several years, and for the last 8 years, I've been in the staff services unit down at our headquarters here in Indianapolis.
Well, we appreciate your service and your 32 years of service, and looking at about maybe getting out of here after a little bit, or
sometime.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we all are at some time, hopefully. But let's talk about what you're working on here. It's very important. And again, it's a reinstatement of a law because apparently this Move It law, which we're referring to, has been on the books before, but was inadvertently removed.
Yes, it was 2 or 3 years ago when they did some major revisions to the criminal and traffic statutes. It was repealed.
And at that time, it was a misdemeanor, correct?
Right. It was a misdemeanor, which is maybe a little severe.
Yeah. And what we're talking about on the Move It law is something that if you're involved in a crash and your vehicle is movable, you can safely get it off the roadway. It's still drivable. Maybe it's just a fender bender that you're required to move it off there. And you guys talk about this, I know, in your end time presentations with Indiana. So what is end time? What does that stand for?
Well, end time is an acronym, stands for Indiana's Traffic Incident Management Effort.
Okay.
And it's a quick clearance program. Every state in the union has a quick clearance program. We call ours end time. And I am the chair of that and have been since October of 2014.
Okay. And that talk to me about what you do with the end time. How do you promote this program, and what exactly is Indiana State Police doing?
Well, this is a program that involves all different responders that might come to any kind of an incident in the roadway. And the idea is to promote an open roads philosophy, meaning that we've recognized that having lanes closed that don't need to be closed or for extended periods of time cause additional traffic problems that we're trying to alleviate, and we'll refer to those as secondary crashes.
Okay.
And so we do training around the state where we invite fire officers, police officers, tow truck operators, dispatchers, EMS, everyone that might respond to a scene to come to this so that we can work together to as quickly as we can get lanes opened again.
I think one thing that you talk about in your end time, I know I took the superintendent's in service the other day, and former Major Tom Melville put on the end time service there, was very involved in that program. And I think you took it over from him.
Yes, correct.
As the chair when he left, but he's still very involved in giving it. But he talked about communications and that FaceTime with somebody, and your FaceTime with your record drivers, your ambulance personnel, and your fire makes for a lot better scene management when you're out there, right?
Absolutely does. And that's really easy in the more rural areas where all the officers tend to know the firefighters and vice versa and all that. But when you get to the more metro areas where the agencies are much larger, the communication becomes much more important because sometimes we don't have relationships with those people that we're out on the scene with.
Yeah, and you're going to have different shifts coming in on different times, and you're not going to know those people all the time.
Exactly.
So what exactly does the Move It law say?
Well, the Move It law, the statute reads as follows. If after an operator of a motor vehicle is involved in an accident, the operator's motor vehicle comes to a stop in the traveled portion of the roadway, the operator shall, as soon as safely possible, move the motor vehicle off the traveled portion of the highway and to a location as close to the accident as possible.
And this, again, gets those hazards off the roadway. I know during the presentation that I saw with former Major Melville, a lot of times, especially on multi-lane roadways, the secondary crash can be worse off than the initial crash.
That's right. They often are because of the speed differential between stop traffic and oncoming traffic that drives into the scene.
Do you find that many people know about this law?
I don't think they really did, and that's one of the reasons we're here with you today is we want to get this word out because this is, July 1, this law becomes effective, and so we want to make sure the public's aware of it and help to educate them why it's important.
And I think I saw, and I maybe with some emails with you and things that through our records we couldn't actually find any time that this law had been enforced when it was previously as a misdemeanor, and we don't really anticipate this being enforced much now unless it's a rare occasion or something. But again, it's more to educate the public that they need to move it off the roadway. And another point I think that we want to express is it empowers them through their insurance company because a lot of times they tell them not to move them, right?
Right, yeah. And it's important that they understand they can get a ticket for this, but as you mentioned, Rich, that's not the intent of the law. We're not trying to write tickets, and we understand that when people are involved in accidents, even a minor one, that's a big deal.
Right.
And sometimes they're a little confused, they're nervous, they're not sure what to do. What the intent of the law is to inform them that we need to get the vehicles out of the roadway when we can do it safely because the danger is even greater when we leave the vehicles in the roadway.
Yeah, and then also if they would find that their insurance company, they call into the post and the dispatcher says, is anybody hurt? No, the post commander. And can you move your vehicles? Are they movable? Yes. Well, go ahead and move them off the roadway for safety. And they said, well, my insurance company told me not to. They have this behind them that they know they have to move them, correct?
That is correct. And the insurance companies are being informed as well of the law, and they're very supportive of it.
Right.
But they did oftentimes tell their clients, keep your car there so the officer can see exactly where the cars came to stop. That might help them determine fault. But
right.
The danger that it creates for a simple fender bender crash isn't worth that evidence that they're trying to preserve.
And there's nothing to say that they can't take their phone out and take a couple snapshots before they move it.
Exactly right. And people have asked me that. Well, what if I think there's something really important that you aren't going to see if I move my car? And we'll tell them if you can safely, quickly take a snapshot, everyone's got a camera now on their phone,
right.
Do so, but only if you can do that safely.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm speaking with Lieutenant Mike Lepper with the Indiana State Police Staff Services, and we're talking about a new, well, it's not actually new, it's going to be a reinstated law with a little different violation instead of what it was previously. It previously was misdemeanor, and now it's going to be a C infraction. And we're talking about the new Move It law brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids. Mike, do you find that when these people don't move their cars, what is the main cause, or what's some statistics that we know happens if they don't get these cars out of the roadway and we have these secondary crashes?
Right. One of the reasons that we've come to recognize the real danger of the secondary crashes are some statistics that are pretty amazing when you think about it. In Indiana, a study was done by Purdue grad students on crash reports from Indiana from the years about 2011, 2014, and we found that 22% of all the crashes in Indiana were secondary, meaning that they were a result of some other event that occurred in the road. It might be another crash, it might be debris in the road, it could be a vehicle stalled in the roadway, anything that might cause a problem on the travel portion of the roadway. And of those, nationally, 18% of all secondary crashes involve fatalities. And we mentioned earlier that when you have that speed differential between vehicles that are very slow or stop because of an incident, and then vehicles coming up behind them at the posted speed limit or faster,
right.
The danger there, and we call that the queue, the back of the backup is the traffic queue, that's really danger. And so often those crashes are more spectacular, more violent than the original incident that caused them.
And maybe something the public's not aware of, but we can point out and push out also at this time is the Indiana State Police, if we have more than one officer working a crash, we're going to try and get a car back to that queue to warn people, correct?
We do, and I talked to troopers even as recently as Wednesday that say that we do that, but people don't seem to understand why we're there, and we're sitting back at that queue to warn them that something's ahead, that they need to start preparing for something in the roadway.
Yeah, if you see emergency lights on a vehicle up there, there's a reason you need to slow down and pay attention to what's going on. You need to pay attention, obviously, all the time, but extra caution as you're coming up on that because there's going to be something that's blocking the roadway or slowed down. We had this just yesterday. I saw where our Indianapolis Public Information Officer, Sergeant Perrine, had put out where a 7-vehicle semi-crash, 6 semis and a van because of a backup that was at. So this is a very much needed law, and people need to pay attention. What are some circumstances where the people would not be required to move their vehicles, Mike?
Yeah, the statute specifically states some incidents, and we recognize that sometimes it's not going to be possible. First one, obviously, is if the vehicle's inoperable. Right. You can't move it if it's inoperable.
Yeah.
But secondly, if there's someone injured or entrapped in the vehicle, we don't want to make those injuries worse than they are. So you're not required by law to move it if there's an injured person in the vehicle or someone entrapped.
Okay.
And then the third one is if the vehicle is transporting hazardous material. We don't want the vehicle moved. We don't want to risk spilling or expanding a spill if the containment has been compromised. So those incidents, the law says you do not have to move your vehicle.
And again, the violation has been changed from a misdemeanor. Maybe explain to the public that if they are found in violation of this law, what they could receive.
Well, an infraction is a civil tort, just like any other traffic ticket you might get. You could be fined for that. The old law was a misdemeanor, which you could actually be put in jail for.
Okay.
Didn't typically happen, but it was possible. So the House of Representatives, where this bill originated, recognized that maybe the misdemeanor is a little too much. So when we got the law reinstated, they made it an infraction.
Another part that we want to point out is also with the move it law we're talking about here, but there's something that's almost the same vocabulary, is a move over law.
Yes.
I know originally that involved police cars, emergency vehicles. Have they expanded that also?
Yes, the move over law, and I think most people are aware of it, and most people are very conscientious and slow down or move over if they can. But what I think the public may not be aware of is that law also applies to DOT trucks, to utility service vehicles, and to recovery vehicles, what we would call a tow truck. When they're on the side of the road with their flashing lights, the move over law applies to them as well.
So what's the violation for that also?
It's also an infraction, meaning you can get a ticket. It's a more severe infraction than the move it law, but you can. It's a infraction, which is the most serious infraction in terms of the potential for a fine.
And what we're talking about here is kind of common courtesy, common sense.
Yes.
You know, if you got something going on over there that could possibly somebody get into the lane, changing a tire, helping a stranded motorist out, something could happen where they could get in the lane and have to make an evasive action. So moving over and giving them room to work is what we say, so that they can also do that. The move it law, or what comes, when does that start officially?
It's effective July 1st of this year.
Okay.
So just not quite a month from now.
And again, we want to make sure that the public are aware of this, that if they're told by a dispatcher, a post commander, or somebody they're talking about on the road, if they're dial 911 and they tell them to move their car, they are required to move their car. That's not you may move your car, it shall move the car, correct?
That is correct.
Explain to them one more time what they're required to do with the law.
Well, the law requires if the vehicles come to rest in the roadway and there's no one injured or entrapped in the vehicle, there's no hazardous material involved, and the vehicle is operable, the law requires them to move it out of the traveled portion of the roadway as close to the scene as possible. Depending on the kind of road you're on, Rich, that might mean a parking lot right very close to the roadway. Obviously, that's even safer than being alongside the road.
Right, exactly.
On an interstate highway, that may not be practical. If you're near an exit, you might be able to pull off. But the important thing is to get well off the roadway where the traveled vehicles are.
Good. Well, we're down to 30 seconds here, so we're going to close out the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I appreciate Lieutenant Lepper being in here explaining this law, and hopefully we'll get it out to the public so we'll have less crashes with these secondary crashes.
That's our goal.
Great. Thanks again to Lieutenant Mike Lepper of the Indiana State Police Staff Services talking to us about the new Move It Law, which comes into effect July 1st, 2016. So make sure you're aware of that. Again, thanks for listening to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. We'll catch you next week. Roadshow is out.